Parak Eliezer, Parak Lamed Vav. We're holding in the middle of the parak. We're speaking about Yaakov Avinu running away from Lavan, from the house of Lavan, and basically the Medrash is going to continue speaking about. Basically, what happens in the pasuk is that at the end of Parshas Vayetze, so Lavan catches up to Yaakov Avinu and he says, why did you steal all my stuff? And Yaakov Avinu says, I didn't really steal it. And Lavan's like, okay, let's just we'll make a deal, and then we'll get together, we'll get along, and then there won't be any fights between us. So they make a deal together, Yaakov and Lavan. Fine. So the Medrash over here is going to go off and say, it's a slight tangent. It's going to say that there's three people that made treaties. The three of us made treaties with nations of the world, and basically Dovid HaMelech had to sort of pick up the pieces and suffer the consequences of those treaties when Dovid HaMelech was trying to unify Eretz Yisrael after he conquered it. So that's what basically we're going to speak about today. Rabbi Yehuda says, Shleisha avos korusu vris im amei haaretz. The three of us made a treaty with the nations of the land. First, when I read this, amei haaretz means like the ignoramuses, like amei haaretz usually in Chazal, but amei haaretz means the nations of the land. Lamed Vav, towards the end.
Oh, towards the end.
Not towards the end. I'm sure it's in the... you have it? Rabbi Yehuda?
I'll find it. Go ahead.
Okay. Ve'elohein, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov Avinu. Avram kores bris im amei haaretz. Avram Avinu made a treaty with the nations of the land, and we're going to go through a whole story about Avram Avinu making a deal with the people of Bnei Ches. What's the story? When the angels appeared to Avram Avinu in the beginning of Parshas Vayera, that we spoke about this story at length earlier, one of the earlier parakim, I don't remember which parak it was. I don't know. You remember what parak it was?
No.
It was in the Lamed somewhere. Whatever, we spoke about that story earlier. So when the angels appeared to Avram Avinu, he thought that they were guests from the nations of the world. So he took them in as guests. He ran to greet them. And he wanted to make for them a great meal, a big banquet for them. And he told Sarah, right, to make for them a meal, right? He said, Mari shlosh seim kemach seles lushi vasi ugais. They take a certain amount of kemach seles, finely ground, fine flour, and make ugais, make bread from it, right? And then it says also Bakar Ratz Avram. Avram went to the Bakar and he brought meat and they had butter and this all these different. It was a huge banquet that he made for these three guests. They were really angels that he thought were people. It's time the Medrash just adds in over here parenthetically. But Isa Shah at that moment, when Sarah was kneading the dough to make the bread or the cakes, she saw dam nida. Right, even though she was 90 years old or 89 years old, right? She saw dam nida, which was a nace, which symbolized that she's going to her cycle is coming back. She's going to be able to have a child. Therefore, she didn't bring out the ugais. If you look in the Plishitim, so it doesn't say that she actually brought the cakes that Avram Avinu told her to bake for these guests. It doesn't say that she brought those cakes or the breads. Why? The pshat is because she saw dam nida, she became tmeya, so therefore she didn't want to bring it up because the bias of Gadol says Avram Avinu echel chulin b'tayra. He used to eat his chulin, his non-holy foods. Usually the halacha is you have to eat kachim, korbanos, sacrificial meats, or trumas. You have to eat it when you're in a state of purity. But even non-holy meats, non-holy regular food, chulin it's called. So even that, Avram Avinu had a special chumrah that they would eat it. He would only eat it while it's tahor, while he's tahor, etc. So he didn't want Sarah knew that Avraham Avinu wouldn't want to eat these breads that she made when she was tamei, so therefore she didn't bring them. We said before one time a different reason what happened to these ugais, why Sarah didn't bring them, because we said that there's a Medrash Chemdas Yavim that says the oig came, he ate them, and that's why he's called oig, al shem ha'ugais, that he ate. So that's oig. We once said that, and we said another stam a few weeks ago. I was in the class from Rabbi Marcus, and he wrote a book called The Guide to Lashon HaKodesh. He gives a class for how to teach Lashon HaKodesh to people in our Sameach. So I was in the class, and it was like late at night. It was probably close to like 10:30 or something. And I was like very tired, and he was like going through sentences and having people translate them. So like one of the sentences was Sarah achla et ha'ugot. So translated, he read it. It said Sarah achla et ha'ugot, and he translated Sarah ate the cakes, and I just started laughing. And they're like, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "No, that's the pshat why she didn't serve the cakes, because she ate them." And it was very late at night. I once also came up with a different pshat about this that basically had to do with Sarah being on a low carb diet, but that's for a different time and place. It's a shtickle complicated, but what?
That's first. You're being very serious.
Yeah, you won't get. No, it's a whole story. I'll tell you a whole story. Basically, this is going to make this shir end late, but I can tell you. Well, you have to go. Okay, so we'll keep this story for a different time. V'rotz Lahavi ben Bakar. Avraham Avinu ran to bring ben Bakar, to bring what's it called, a young veal or something, right? Ben Bakar is like a calf. The veal is a calf meat, right?
Ben normally connotes
young.
Year-old.
Fine.
I think Rashi say that someplace.
Could be. Ben Bakar. So Rashi went. Avraham Avinu went to bring a calf to have meat. Ubarach lefanav ben Bakar, and the calf ran away from him. V'nichlas Mearat HaMachpelah, and the calf ran to Mearat HaMachpelah. And the pasuk says, "The Bakar rotz Avram." Avram ran to the Bakar, and the Marzuz says that's the remnants that they did. Avram had to run after the Bakar. It was going somewhere, and he had to run after it to catch up to it. And there's also a remnant in the Balaturim. It says that the Bakar rotz is gematria rotz l'na'ara. It ran to the cave. And also the Radal points out over here, Ha-Bakar, Ben Ha-Bakar. Ha-Bakar is the same letters as the word Kvura, which is the grave. So we see that this calf that Avraham Avinu wanted to shech and bring it as a guest, it ran away and went to Mearat HaMachpelah. V'nichnas Achrav, and Avraham Avinu followed after this calf into the Mearat HaMachpelah. Umatza Sham, what did he find there? Adam v'Chava. He saw Adam and Chava sheichvin ala mitais v'yishenim. They were laying down in their beds and they were sleeping, meaning they were dead. V'neiros dolikim alehem, and there were candles lit above them. V'reach toiv alehem kareach nichoyach, and there was a good smell coming out, emanating from them, like reach nichoyach, like a good smell of karbanos. Lefichach chomad es Mearat HaMachpelah achuzas kover. Therefore, Avraham Avinu desired Mearat HaMachpelah as his final resting place. Right? He decided that as his achuzas kever, as a heritage of a burial heritage. Right? And the Radal says that the Medrash is saying here that it's giving this whole description of what Avraham Avinu saw in Mearat HaMachpelah. Adam and Chava, they were laying down with the candle and the smell, and this, because otherwise it's like, Avraham Avinu stam desired something that belonged to somebody else because he wanted it stam. So the Medrash is saying, no, it wasn't stam that he wanted it. He saw there was some ruchniistic thing over here, and that's why he specifically desired Mearat HaMachpelah. Okay, it's still a little bit of a tzarachian, because just because you see a ruchniistic thing, significance to something, so that means that you're allowed to desire something that belongs to somebody else. If the Torah says leis sachmoid, leis sasada, you're not allowed to desire something that belongs to somebody else. So just because you see that it's significant, that could be on the contrary. That's more of a reason. It's significant. It belongs to someone else. You should still not want it. So I'm not sure exactly what the Radal is trying to say, but.
Does it mean that they were Yeshenim?
I don't know. I'm just translating what it says. It was laying on a bed. They were laying on a bed and sleeping, and there was a candle lit over them. I don't know what that means. Like in the cartoons, like when someone has a good idea, so like a light bulb comes up over his head.
Well, they were sleeping. They're not dead.
Yeah. I know. I think sleeping is a euphemism for dead, but I'm not sure.
And who lit the candles?
Maybe Hashem. Hashem buried them. I don't know. I'm not sure what it means.
Hashem didn't have to bury them.
Al Kapanim. So okay, this is the Ikra thing. So Avraham Avinu decides he wants to get this Mearat HaMachpelah. Omar Levnei Yevus. So he went to the Yevusim, Liknes Behemes Mearat HaMachpelah, to go buy from them Mearat HaMachpelah b'mecher toiv uvezahav, with a good sale with gold. A different gersa is with a good sale, meaning with gold, or b'mecher toiv, meaning zav, or another gersa the Radal brings is b'mecher oilam, with an everlasting sale, bezav, with gold. Like gold is like a lasting thing. Uvishtar oilam, and with a document that's supposed to last forever, lachuzas cover, as a heritage of being a burial place, a burial heritage. This time the Ratah has a whole shtickle over here that in the Psukim it says it was Arba Me'ez shekel kesef. It was Arba Me'ez shekel kesef. It was silver, not gold. So the Ratah says that what Avraham Avinu gave to them was gold, but the amount of gold was measured in 400 shekel of kesef. 400 silver shekel is like a certain amount of money, and Avraham Avinu gave them that amount in gold. It's like a currency, but it wasn't the actual commodity that he gave them. But now you should have asked this question. If you look in the Psukim, it says Ephron Ephron was a Hittite, right?
I was going to ask. I'm waiting for it to get through the story of the Yevusi and maybe then go to the Hittite.
Right. So Ephron was a Hittite. So why did the Medrash just call him Yevusi?
And also, I was just going to say maybe it was they were saying that he was going to offer them gold, Yevusi, but then it was the Hittite and he didn't offer them gold.
So the Medrash asked this question. At least this way I understand it. Were they Yevusim, the people that Avraham Avinu bought Mearat HaMachpelah from? Were they not Chitim? It says Ephron Achisi. It says Vayishachalu Amaretz Livnei Ches, right? So why does it say Yevusi? Why did the Medrash call them Yevusim? El al Shem Ir Yevus Nikru Yevusim. Rather, because of the city Yevus, they're called Yevusim. Now Yevus is another name for the city of Yerushalayim. That's the name. And what we're going to see later on in the Medrash, that the Yevusim were the ones, these quote-unquote Yevusim were the people in charge of the city of Yerushalayim that was not conquered all the way until the time of Dovid HaMelech. Meaning it wasn't conquered in the original conquerings by Yeshua and Shoftim, for like 400 years after Bnei Yisrael came in. They didn't conquer Yerushalayim right away. It was conquered in the time of Dovid HaMelech, but the city of Yevus.
But wait a minute, then we're in Hebron. He wants to buy them to marry.
Okay. So the understanding is that the way I understand it is that the people that Avraham Avinu is buying it from, they're called Chitim. These people, I guess their descendants are going to be the people who are going to later conquer the city of Yevus from the real Yevusim, and then. Therefore, they're going to be called Yevusim because they lived in the city of Yevus.
But they're Bnei Ches.
But they're really Bnei Ches. Just to get an idea, the Torah in Parashas Noach, when it goes to the sons of Canaan, right? So one of the sons of Canaan is Ches or Chitim, and one of the sons of Canaan is Yevus or Yevusim. Right? They're different. Let's call them tribes of Canaanim, of descendants of Canaan. So here we're saying that these people really that Avraham Avinu bought it from were Chitim, but later on later on in Nach, and also we're here in the Medrash, we're calling them Yevusim because the descendants of these Chitim would later inhabit the city of Yevus, and therefore they would be called Yevusim, even though they weren't really what we call really Yevusim. It's a shtickle complicated, and we'll see a little bit later that it's even more complicated than the way I'm saying it. And the question really is like, what prompted Chazal to say such a thing? Like, why are we taking not at face value? But okay, whatever. So Avraham Avinu originally made the offer to them. The men did not agree, or did not originally accept Avraham Avinu's offer. He began to bow and prostrate himself in front of the people of Ches. Avraham bowed in front of the Amoritz, the nation of the land. They said to him, Anu yoidim, we know we know that in the future God is going to give to you and to your descendants all these lands. Make a treaty with us that the Jews will not inherit the city of Yevus unless it's with the approval of the people of Yevus. So he's saying people are saying that Avram Avinu will sell you. The Hittim are saying Avram will sell you this land, this Mearat HaMachpelah, only on condition that you make a treaty with us that you won't that your descendants won't conquer the city of Yevus. Fine. Says the Medrash. Now this time the question is, okay, we're talking about these Hittim who inhabit right now Hebron. Right? So they have other cities as well. We're talking about Hebron or Kiryas Arba, whatever it's called, and we're saying that they're in the future they're going to conquer Yevus, or they're going to be in charge of Yevus. The question is why did they say Dafka Yevus of all the cities that they have? Why didn't they say as long as you don't conquer the rest of Hebron, just take the Mearat HaMachpelah and not the rest of it? They didn't say that. They said, we know you're going to conquer everything. Just leave us Yevus. Why Dafka Yevus? So the Radal says that the pshat is because even the Knaanim understood the Yevus, which is the city of Yerushalayim, there's something holy about it. We say that Yerushalayim shel mata is connected, is muchuved connected Yerushalayim shel mala. The lower Jerusalem in this world corresponds to the Jerusalem in the Shemayim, which is a high spiritual place. People recognize that, even the Goyim, the Knaanim in that time recognized it, and so they didn't want to lose that special place. So they said we're only selling Mearat HaMachpelah on the condition that you won't conquer Yerushalayim from us, at least without our consent. Fine. The Karasima in Bris, the Radal adds those words. The Karasima in Bris, and he made a treaty with them. And afterwards, Avram Avinu, he made the treaty with them, and afterwards, Avram Avinu acquired, or he bought Mearat HaMachpelah with Mecher Zav, with a price of gold. He gave them, he paid them in gold, with a chsav olam, and with a written document that's supposed to last forever, lachusas olam, as an eternal inheritance. Shnei says in the pasuk, Vayishma Avraham el Ephron. Avram listens to Ephron. Vayishka Avram le Ephron as a kesef. Avram measured for Ephron the money asher diber baznev v'nei ches that he spoke about in the ears of the people of Ches. Abba meyeh shekel kesef iver l'aseicher. Right? He gave them Abba meyeh shekel kesef, which we said was the currency, wasn't the actual thing that he gave them. It was the value of what he gave them. But the Radal points out an interesting thing over here. The Radal says that Avram Avinu comes out, is going to acquire. The Mishnah in Mesachas Kedushin says, Karka niknas b'shloisha drachim, kesef, shtar, and chazaka. You can acquire land through three means: through giving money, through writing a document, and through chazaka, through showing your ownership by taking it, by using it. Let's say. And so he says that Avram Avinu did all three things. He gave money for it, he wrote a document for it, and also he used it to bury Sarah, so he showed his ownership about it. So Avram Avinu was koine Mearat HaMachpelah in all three ways. Even though the Gemara in the beginning of Kedushin says that the kinyan that Avram Avinu used was kesef, like kicha mistei Ephron, which is assuming that it's kesef. So the Radal asked that as a question. I'm not sure how much of a question. It could be that was the first kinyan, or that was the only one that's mentioned explicitly in the Chumash. Okay. Yeah, there's a Tesis of Rosh Mesachas Seita Daf Yud that brings in the name of Pirkei Eliezer that as a sign to show this treaty that he made with the Bnei Ches, Avram Avinu gave them his choisam, his signet. But our Pirkei Eliezer doesn't say something like that. Actually, it says something quite different. Me also anshes Yevus. What did the people of Yevus do? These Chittim that sold Avram Avinu the Mearat HaMachpelah on condition that they don't conquer, that Avram Avinu's descendants won't conquer Yevus. Also, tzlamim shel nocheshes. They made statues of bronze, copper. Ve'amido yislan b'rchei va'ir, and they erected them in the city, in the street of the city, or in the plaza of the city. And they wrote on these statues this shvua, this oath that Avraham Avinu took that his descendants are not going to conquer Yevus without the consent of the Jebusites. When Bnei Yisrael came to Eretz Yisrael, they wanted to go into the Jebusite city in order to conquer it. And they were not able to enter because of the sign of the covenant of the oath of Avraham Avinu that he said that my descendants are not gonna conquer Yevus, the city of Yevus. It says the pasuk of Yevus Yerushalayim, they didn't conquer. It's a pasuk in Sefer Shoftim. That's originally when the Jews came to Eretz Yisrael. David, when Dovid HaMelech became king, and he wanted to go inside the Jebusite city, he wasn't able to go in. They didn't let him in, or he couldn't go in. It says in the pasuk by David, you can't come here. Now the Medrash asks, was it not true that the Jews at that time were like the sand of the sea, like the sand by the beach? They were so numerous, right? So the Jews are so numerous and they had such a strong army. Of course they would be able to go in and conquer it. What do you mean that Dovid HaMelech couldn't go in? Of course he could go in. What's the problem? What's blocking him? Right? The Jews were so powerful and so numerous. What was blocking him? Ella, rather, what the pasuk means is Mikoyach bris Shavuos Avram, because of the power of the oath of that covenant that Avraham Avinu said that my descendants are not going to conquer the city of Yevus without your permission. So Dovid HaMelech wasn't able to go in and conquer it because of that promise that Avraham Avinu made. David HaMelech saw this and he went backwards. He retreated. He went to Metzudah. He returned to Metzudah. They said to him, they told Dovid HaMelech, Ein ato yochel likones be'ir haYevusi. You cannot enter the Yevusi city. At shetasir kol atzlamim halalu shekasav aleim ois Shavuos Avram. Until you remove all of these statues that have written upon them the Shavua of Avraham Avinu, the sign of the Shua. It says in the pasuk, Ki im hesircha ha'ivrim va'pischim, that you can't go into the city of Yevus, unless you remove the blind men and the lame men. What are these ivrim v'apischim, the blind men and the lame men? It says the Medrash, we'll say like this. The Medrash we have it the way we have the Medrash is like this. Elu hatzlamim. Is that how you have it? Elu hatzlamim. These are the statues shenemar alehem that it says about these statues. Al ken yermu iveru pisech layovay elaboyis. A blind man and a lame man can't come into the house, right? Okay. So then there's a girsa that says like this. Shema Toimar. This is from the Ksaviyat. Shema Taimar ha'ivrim v'apischim lo hayu nichnasim b'migdash chas v'shalom. Maybe you'll see what that pasuk means is that Ivrim and Pischim, a blind man and a lame person, cannot go into the base of Migdash. Lo yovei el habayis, they can't come to the base of Migdash. Means that's what the pasuk means, that they can't come into the base of Migdash. Chas v'shalom, that's what the Medrash says. No, chas v'shalom. Ella, rather, what does that pasuk mean? Hatzlamim, it's referring to these statues. Ivrim, why are they called blind men? Because einayim lehem v'lo yiru. Because they have eyes and they don't see. And Pischim, why are they called Pischim? Is because they have feet and they don't walk. Shenemar Snui Nefesh David. Because it says the pasuk that these Ephron and Pischim are Snui Nefesh David. They are people that David's soul hates them. And what does it mean? David and because Dovid HaMelech would hate to see or to hear about Avodah Zarah, so it must be that we're talking about these statues. That's what the Medrash says. This girsa of the Medrash. So basically, what the Medrash is explaining is that the reason why these statues are called blind men and lame men is because, just like Avodah Zarah, you call it blind or man, lame or whatever, just because, if you make a form of a person and it has eyes and it can't see, it's like the Torah is sort of mocking it. It's calling Avodah Zarah something in a disparaging way, as if it's blind because it has eyes and it doesn't see, or it's lame because it has legs and it doesn't walk. Right? That's what the Medrash is saying over here. The Zayis Ranan and the Yalkut Shemini, it also gives this explanation, even to the Girsa that we have over here. Right, so there's another explanation. There's another explanation that the Ravid in his Pirush on the Sifri says that they erected this as a remez to Avram and Yaakov Avinu, because to Yitzchak and Yaakov, because Yitzchak Avinu was blind, right, and Yaakov Avinu was lame. Doesn't mean he was lame. So Rashi in Avodah Zarah Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis says that because Huselei al Yerechai, we're going to see in the next parak that Yaakov Avinu will get injured by by an angel, and he's going to walk. He's going to be on a limp. So a limp is not so far away from being lame, where his feet doesn't work at all. So the lame person depicts Yaakov Avinu, and the blind person depicts Yitzchak. That's another way of explaining what the blind person and the lame person is.
But then why wouldn't the Jews be allowed to go in there?
Why wouldn't they be allowed to go into Yevus?
Yaakov and Yitzchak, why wouldn't he be allowed to enter until it's removed?
Okay.
If that's
okay, so Mufashim asked this question. So like this. We said that Avraham Avinu made a promise that his descendants are not going to conquer Yevus without the permission of the Yevusim, right? Mm-hmm. Fine. And they wrote it on these statues of the blind man and the lame man. Happens to be that the blind man and the lame man are a remez. Either they're called blind and lame because it's like a Avodah Zarah, or it's called blind and lame because it's like Yitzchak and Yaakov. Fine. The question is, why can't Dovid HaMelech go inside and conquer Yerushalayim until he removes these statues? So we'll see in a minute. Let's just finish off the story. Omer Dovid LaNoshav. Dovid HaMelech said to his men, "Call me Shialav or Yishayna." Oh, stop! Another point, because that point comes up over here. The way the girsa that I read from the manuscript, and the Marzu, it seems, also had this girsa. So there was a hava amina that when the pasuk says Al Kain Yamu Ira Pistech Le'Avo Yalapoyis, that a blind man and a lame man can't come into the house. So what does it mean, the house? It means the Beis Hamikdash. And the Medrash says, no, chas v'shalom. That's not what it means, that a blind man and a lame man can't come into the Beis Hamikdash. It says chas v'shalom, that's not what it means. Rather, it's referring to these statues. Right? So, I'm bothered by, what's the chas v'shalom? It's a chas v'shalom to say that a blind man and a lame man can't come to the Beis Hamikdash. If there's such a halacha, there's such a halacha. If there's not, there's not. What's the chas v'shalom about it?
If it's representing Yitzchak and Yaakov.
No, it was the Havamina. Before Havamina, that stand, that pasuk happens to be talking about going into the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. And then we're answering, no, you can't have the Beis Hamikdash, meaning you won't be able to conquer Yerushalayim until these things are removed, until these statues are removed. But the Havamina was that it literally means a blind man and a lame man can't go into the Beis Hamikdash. So what would be like? So what's the chas v'shalom about it? So I was wondering it, and then I remembered that when I studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, so one of the Dead Sea Scrolls is called the Temple Scroll. It's known as 11Q20, 11Q20. Go to the bathroom.
I'm going to walk around.
Are you walking around because you're falling asleep?
No. I just need to get my energy out.
So in Scroll 11Q20, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, so the Dead Sea Scrolls sect writes that there's a prohibition for a blind man to come into the Beis Hamikdash. So that's some sort of the working theory is that
there's no source in Chazal.
There's not that I know of. There's no source of Chazal that says such a thing. The working theory of the Dead Sea Scrolls is that some of them were written by tzaddikim or some group similar to tzaddikim.
Yeah, but that's close to Chazal. Meaning they were, as far as I understood, they were they were big Talmidei Chachamim going in the wrong direction.
Right.
So,
right.
It's not like I'm artsy.
Yeah. So I want to propose that's the chas v'shalom. The chas v'shalom is like don't think that the tzaddikim are right. This pasuk is telling you, like the tzaddikim, that a blind man is not allowed to go into the Beis Hamikdash. Chas v'shalom. No, the pasuk is talking about something completely different. It's talking about that as a prerequisite for conquering Yerushalayim, they need to get rid of these statues.
That would make sense because To me, I'm a complete Amaretz in the city, but they were people that didn't believe in the Masorah.
Right.
So they would take words and they would translate it
Literally. Okay.
So they were literally means
It could be.
So now we're saying no. The Masorah says that there is. It's perfectly acceptable to go.
It could be. Yeah. I don't know about Pisach. I looked in my notes about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I didn't say anything about Pisach. It could be it says Pisach there, and I just didn't write it down or something like that. But I don't know where Pisach comes in. Fine. David HaMelech said to his men, anyone who goes up first, and he'll remove these statues, that is set upon it the sign of the covenant of the oath of Avram Avinu, whoever gets rid of these things, he's going to be the head. He's going to be the head of the army. Right? He's going to be like a chosh person. Yoav ben Tzruya got up first. Right, Tzruya is Dovid HaMelech's sister, so Yoav ben Tzruya was his nephew. And he became the head of the army. Yoav ben Tzruya was the head of Dovid HaMelech's army. And then, so he got rid of these statues, and then they went and they conquered Yevus, and then he bought the city from the Yevusim with an eternal writing, meaning with a document, and for what's it called, everlasting inheritance. Also, what did Dovid HaMelech do? He took from every shevet 50 shekel. Therefore, it comes out that altogether you have 50 shekel from 12 tribes. Comes out to 600 shekel. David la'Arnon. He gave him 600 shekel to buy the city of Yevus, or to buy the granary of Arnon upon which the Beis Hamikdash will be built. And as the Marzu points out, the Medrash over here is trying to answer a apparent contradiction between two psukim. The pasuk in Divrei Yom in Shmuel says that he bought it for 50 shekel, and the pasuk in Divrei Yom says he bought it for 600 shekel. So how do you reconcile that difference? So the Medrash is saying it was 50 shekel from each shivet, which comes out to 600 shekel altogether. Fine. So as Rabbi Pomerantz asked, what's this idea of getting rid of the statues in order to go conquer it? It's not the statues that made the covenant that you're not going to conquer Yevus. It was the covenant itself that made it. The statues is just a sign. It's just the publication of that covenant. But if the covenant still exists, whether or not the statues are there is irrelevant. The covenant is still there. So what does it help to get rid of it? So this is what the Mefarshim are bothered by. So the Mefarshim say like this. The Zayis Rana and the Marzu sort of says this, is first you have to say that that the Yevusim themselves, or these Chitim themselves, they already nullified the treaty. They did something against Kal Yisrael that nullified the treaty, and then the treaty was already technically gone. The only problem is that it would be a Chilul Hashem to go fight them, because there's signs about this treaty all over the place. And then if you're fighting them, even though the treaty is already technically ineffective already, it's already nullified, but if everyone sees these signs that talk about such a treaty, it's going to be a Chilul Hashem. So first, in order to go fight them, you got to get rid of the signs. That's more or less the idea over here.
Wait a minute. If the signs represent Avodah Zarah, then you can't go in the city because there's Avodah Zarah. That's why David can't go in the city, because he hates Avodah Zarah, and he sent somebody else.
That's how you understood the Medrash?
I thought that's how we were understanding it, because he hated.
Because he hated it.
Because it's Sone, and the other Girsa, Sone, because he hated in the second. Girsa. He hated Avodah Zarah, so he himself wouldn't go in. But Yoav ben Tzruya, he went in and he got rid of them. So now David can come in and can at least come into the area. But if you say, I thought that's the pshat that was said over there. But if you say that they represent Yitzchak and Yaakov, I don't understand anything at all.
No, I don't. If I say that they represent Yitzchak and Yaakov, I'm still talking about the oath and the covenant of Avram Avinu. It's just that It's just that it represents Yitzchak and Yaakov, meaning it's showing that like these people are descendants of Yitzchak and Yaakov. We're still talking about the same thing, l'chora.
So why can't you go in the city? That's no reason not to go in the city. If you say it's
if you say it's okay,
to go in the city for something.
First of all, I don't know if it's literally Avodah Zarah or if it's like Avodah Zarah.
Gilulim is another girsa here. Gilulim. Salamim, hot salamim. No?
Yeah, but it could be just statues, which are also to make a statue of a person. It's not really Avodah Zarah, but it has like it looks like Avodah Zarah. It sounds like Avodah Zarah in some ways. I don't know. I don't know what the pshat is. Okay. So the Mefarshim sort of grapple with this because like we don't really find elsewhere that they already nullify the treaty. It's like, why would you say that? Mm-hmm. I don't know. But so the truth is, there's another complicating issue, and for that we'll have to go a little bit more weiter, and then we'll bring it up. Well, remind me to bring it up before we get to the third treaty. Yitzchak karas bris im amei haaretz. Yitzchak Avinu also made a treaty with the nations of the land. Kishagar be'eretz Plishitim, when Yitzchak lived in the land of the Plishitim. Ra oisam shahavchu fneihem imeno. Yitzchak saw that the Plishitim were turning their faces from upon him. They were being not so friendly to him. They turned their faces around. They didn't want to have anything to do with him. And then he wanted to come out with them in peace. He left them in peace. They sent him away. They said, "You're too rich. We don't like you anymore. Get out of here." And then Avimelech and his men followed Yitzchak Avinu, and they wanted to make a treaty with him. He said to them, "You turned your heads away from me. And now you're coming to me because you want to. Because for what? What are you coming to me for? Why did you come to me? You hate me, and you sent me away from you." They said, "We saw that Hashem is with you, and we see that when you're in our land, it brings much haslachat to our land. So we want to make a deal with you." But really, this is what's bothering us. Amru, they said, we know that Hashem is going to give to your descendants all of these lands. It's interesting that the lashon here is that Hashem is going to give to your descendants. Earlier we said Hashem is going to give, by Avram we said Hashem is going to give to you and your descendants. Here it's just to your descendants. But the Plishitim said to Yitzchak Avinu, we know that Hashem is going to give to your descendants all of these lands. Kreis imanu bris she'en Yisrael yeshenes eretz Plishitim. Please make a treaty with us that the Jews will not conquer or inherit the land of the Plishitim. Me'asa Yitzchak, what did Yitzchak Avinu do? Lokach ama achas mimeseg chamor asher haya reichel alav. He took one hand from the saddle of the donkey that he would ride upon. I don't know what that means. What's a hand of a saddle? I don't know what it means. I don't know how a saddle really looks, so I don't know. But he took the hand from the saddle, and he gave that to the king of to Avimelech as a sign that there's going to be an oath of a covenant between them, that Yitzchak is not going to, his descendants won't conquer the land of the Plishitim, I guess like without their permission or something like that, like we said before. David, when Dovid HaMelech became king, he wanted to go into the land of the Plishitim, and he wasn't able to enter because of this covenant of Yitzchak. Until he took away from the Plishitim this sign of the covenant of the oath of Yitzchak that says that we're not going to conquer the Philistine lands. It says David took Meseg Ha'ama from the Plishitim, which is the saddle of the what's it called? The hand of the saddle, or the saddle of the hand of the saddle, right? From the Plishitim. Pashup Pshat is Rashi goes like this, and the Targum goes like this. Pashut Pshat is that it's talking about the name of a city. Mesech Ha'ama is the name of a city that Dovid HaMelech took from the Plishitim. But the Medrash over here is saying that no, it's referring to that saddle that Yitzchak gave them as a sign that he's not going to conquer them, that Dovid HaMelech took that away, and now he's able to go fight with them. The Radak also, he brings down this Pirkei Belez over there. The Radak first brings the Pashut Pshat, that it's the name of a city, and then or it's another name for the city Gas, which is one of the 5 Philistine cities. You know what the big 5 Philistine cities are? It's a good thing to know. Ashdod, Ashkelon, Ekron, Gas, and Azza. Those are the 5 Philistine cities. They're all along the coast. Al Kopanim, so Mesech Ha'ama is another name, according to Rashi and the Rishonim. It's another name for the city Gas. Kiryas Gas, I don't know. Kiryas Gat is probably, maybe it's there, I don't know. Yeah, it's somewhere there. But the Medrash is saying that it's referring to the hand of that saddle that Yitzchak gave him as a sign that he's not going to conquer it. Dovid HaMelech took that, and now he's able to conquer it. It says that he subjugated, or he made the Plishitim nichna. He made them humbled. He humbled the Plishitim, and he wasn't. The Plishitim were no longer able to. It doesn't say what, but they were no longer able to be like a major power to fight against the Jews as enemies. Now, even though this pasuk, the Mepharshim say this pasuk is talking about by the time of Shmuel Navi, it's talking about before Dovid HaMelech became king. But the Marzu sort of says like Imenu Inyan, if it's obviously doesn't mean in the time of Shmuel Navi, because we see that they were still fighting in the time of Dovid HaMelech, but it means that after Dovid HaMelech settled it, the Plishitim were no longer trouble. Radal asks another question. He says that we find them fighting, Dovid HaMelech fighting with the Plishitim even later in his life. So he says there's a difference between earlier in history, the Plishitim, they were so powerful that they could fight the Jews and go into the Jews' land and fight them. Later on, they weren't able, the Plishitim still made trouble, but the fights were in Plishitim land, not in the Jews' land. Like the Jews Dovid HaMelech would go and fight the Plishitim on the Plishitim's land, like he would to conquer the Plishitim, not to defend the Jews from the Plishtim's incursions. And then the Radal also in Yisrael Aleph, he said, he brings on that later on in history, after Dovid HaMelech, we still find the Plishtim making trouble. He says, whenever we find a few places that the Jews were doing averas, so Hashem gave special powers to the Plishtim that they would be able to make trouble. He says, in the time of Yehoram, the son of Yehoshaphat, and the time of Uziyahu, in the time of Achaz, towards the end, they were, if they were Zara, at least Achaz was, and Uziyahu was also not doing the right thing. Yehoram also, Rashi and Hiris says that Yehoram he was originally a good king, and then afterwards he went off the derech. So all these kings, they weren't doing the right thing, so Hashem sent the Plishtim after them. Fine, so that's it's a similar story, right? Yitzchak made a shvua that he's not going to conquer Plishti land, and then Dovid HaMelech wasn't able to do it until he got rid of the sign of that shvua. Fine. So there's a few questions over here. First of all, the Radal points out that other midrashim, when it talks about this, they talk about the Plishtim in terms of Avram Avinu, because really Avram Avinu was the first one to make a deal with the Plishtim, right? In Tana Devel Yo Zuta, it says Avram Avinu made a deal with the Plishtim. Yitzchak Avinu sort of just upcapped the deal, the original deal that Avram made with the Plishtim. He didn't make it wasn't necessarily a new deal. Yeah.
The first deal with Abraham was for Beersheba?
By Beersheba, the first time Beersheba was named. So, I don't know. Then that was the Radal in Ois Kuf, he asked this question. And then Ois Kuf Ches, the Radal says that you have to say that when the Plishtim kicked out Yitzchak from their land, so that was sort of a nullification of the original treaty with Avram Avinu, and then if they want to make peace between the Jews again, they had to make a new deal. So the deal that Yitzchak made with the Plishtim was a new deal. It was besides the one with Avram Avinu.
Uh-huh. Why doesn't the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer talk about the Shavua that Avram made with them?
I don't know. Maybe because maybe Pirkei was understood that it was nullified not so long afterwards. So it was like sort of historically moot. wasn't historically important. Yeah. But and again, the Radal explains that over here, what you have to say that what was blocking Dovid HaMelech from conquering the Plishitim land, it wasn't just the fact that the hand of the saddle still existed, because the hand of the saddle is not the treaty. The treaty is the treaty, right? So what does getting rid of the hand of the saddle have to do with being able to conquer Plishitim land? So the Radal says the same thing you have to say, because we find the Plishitim fighting Bnei Yisrael already even before Dovid HaMelech in Sefer Shoftim, etc. So by them going out and fighting Bnei Yisrael, they already nullified the treaty. So the whole thing was just a matter of Chilul Hashem. So a matter of Chilul Hashem. So first get rid of the Meseg HaAma, and then you could go fight them, and then everything is hunky-dory. That's basically what the Radal says. Now, I said there was there's a slightly another complicating factor over here. The slightly complicating factor is like this. It's a Rashi in Sefer Shmuel Beis, Perek Hey, Pasuk Vav, as well as Rashi in Sefer Yeshua, Perek Tezvav, Pasuk Samech Gimel, as well as the Ravid in his Pirush on the Sifri, on the Pasuk of Leisucha Lechol B'Sharecha and Parshas Re'eh. They all go with a different mahalach. They say like this. Why wasn't Dovid HaMelech able to conquer the city of Yevus right away? Why didn't the Jews conquer right away? Why didn't Dovid HaMelech conquer right away? What was blocking him? So they say the shvua that Avram Avinu gave, or Avram or Yitzchak gave to Avimelech, that's what stopped them from conquering the city of Yevus. And they understand that these Yevusim that were in the city of Yevus, of Yerushalayim, were descendants of the Plishitim. So now, it's an interesting thing, because this Rashi and this Ravid are also understanding, like I pointed out before, that the Yevusim that Dovid HaMelech had to deal with were not literally Yevusim tribe of Canaan, but they were really Plishitim, which is really not Canaan B'chlal, the descendants of Mitzrayim. Plishitim are descendants of Mitzrayim, Parshas Noach. Right? They were descendants of Mitzrayim. They were really Plishitim, but they were called Yevusim for another reason, either because they were from the city of Yevus, like we said before, that the Chitim were called Yevusim because they're in the city, or the Radak says a pshat that they're descendants of some other person whose name was Yevus, that's not talking about Yevus, who was the son of Canaan, a different Yevusim, but not the same Yevusim, but a different pshat. So it comes out we have like sort of a machlokes over here. Why couldn't Dovid HaMelech conquer the city of Yevus right away? Right? Was it because of the shvua that Avram Avinu gave to the Chitim, and these Yevusim are descendants of those Chitim? Or is it because of the shvua that Avram and Yitzchak gave to the Plishitim, and these Yevusim are descendants of those Plishitim? That comes out to machlokes over here.
But they're holding two osim.
What do you mean?
They're holding the saddle, and they're holding and they have the copper statue.
No, I mean the Rashi and the Ravid, they don't mention anything about the saddle. That's this medrash over here mentioning about the saddle, and it's talking about Eretz Plishti proper. It's not necessarily talking about Yerushalayim B'chlal.
So when David, it's talking about something else.
Stop when David wanted to conquer the Philistine lands.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're talking about Yerushalayim.
We're talking about Yevusite now.
No,
all of a sudden.
No, it's just stop. Now I'm going back. I'm just pointing out that there's a machlokes. Our Pirkei Eliezer said that the reason why Dovid HaMelech couldn't conquer the Yevusim right away is because of the shvua that Avram Avinu made to the Chitim, and these Yevusim are descendants of those Chitim, right? By the story of Ephron. That's what Pirkei Eliezer says. And Rashi in Nach goes with a different mahalach that it's because of the shvua that Avram and Yitzchak gave to the Plishitim, and those Yevusim are really descendants of the Plishitim. That's what Rashi says. So it's machlokes. Now it gets a little bit more complicated. There's a Gemara. The Gemara in Soita, the Testament Beis through Yud Amud Aleph, the Gemara in Soita basically says that in the time of Shimshon, meaning in the time of Shoftim, by Shimshon when he fought with the Plishitim, right? He was famous for fighting with the Plishitim. Todos Lafsheim Plishitim, right? Shimshon fought with them. How could Shimshon fight with the Plishitim? There was a shvua, there was a treaty with the Plishitim. How could he fight with them? So the Gemara says, Huchal shvua. It was already huchal. It was desecrated. It was already null and void, the treaty with the Plishitim by the time of Shimshon. Right? The Maharsha says, what's a pshat? So the Maharsha says that the Maharsha in Soita says that the pshat is that they said, I think by Yitzchak, Avimelech said to Yitzchak, "Im tishkor li ulnini ulnechti kechesed shasisei muchat tasei modi," etc. Right? So he's saying he's being magbil. Yeah, he's limiting the covenant to 3 generations. Tishkor li ulnini ulnechti, to me, to my grandkid, my great grandkid, and that's it. And then afterwards, on its own, it's going to be null. It's only supposed to be effective for 3 generations. So the Marshal says that in the time of Shimshon, that's when the Avimelech's great grandson was still alive, and then he died, and now there's no more Shavuot, so Shimshon could go fight them. That's what the Marshal says. So you see that the Shavuot with the Plishitim already ceased to be effective in the time of Shimshon. Now you have a kasha on Rashi. Because Rashi said the reason why Dovid HaMelech couldn't originally go fight to conquer Yerushalayim is because of the Shvuah that Avram and Yitzchak gave to the Plishitim. But the Gemara says clearly that already in the time of Shimshon there was no Shvuah to the Plishitim. So what was stopping Dovid HaMelech, who lived a few hundred years later? What's the problem over here? So Tesis Rosh in Mesechus Saita asks this kasha. And then I found that Tesis Shantz in Mesechus Saita also asks this kasha. And Tesis Shantz says that the Gemara holds like Pirkei Eliezer. The Gemara holds like Pirkei Eliezer. What was stopping them from conquering Yerushalayim wasn't the Shvuah of Avram and Yitzchak to the Plishitim. It was the Shvuah of Avram to these Hittim by Ephron. Right? That's what stopped it. So even, in Achanami, the Shvuah to the Plishitim was already gone from the time of Shimshon. But what was stopping them from conquering Yerushalayim, according to the Pirkei Eliezer, has nothing to do with Plishitim. It has to do with the Hittim that were called Yevusim. That's what the Tesis Shantz or Tesis Avira, whatever it's called, the 2 names over there in Mesechus Saita. That's what he answers over here. And Moshe of Zakeni, also Parshas Vayera, says such a teretz. So it's a machlokes between Rashi and Nach and Pirkei Eliezer, and the Gemara seems to be going like Pirkei Eliezer. It's an interesting idea.
I got a little confused.
Yeah.
David over here, it's 2 different places. It's not Yerushalayim. Rashi was talking about Plishitim down south.
No, Rashi and Chumash. Rashi and Nach is talking about Yerushalayim.
He is?
But
why?
Rashi understood that the Yevusim of Yerushalayim are descendants of the Plishitim.
So he's arguing with the first.
With the first treaty.
With the first treaty.
Right.
The second treaty is different.
Right.
Totally. It's not.
Right. It's just talking about Plishitim on Plishitim land.
It's not nothing to do with.
Nothing to do with Yerushalayim.
This argument and
right. I should have really mentioned this earlier. But
Plishitim, he's saying Plishitim. We're not saying Plishitim. We are saying Plishitim. We're saying Plishitim now.
Right.
We're not saying Plishitim before.
Right.
We're saying it is Plishitim before.
Right. Okay, then you still. One second. Okay, if you want to go, you have to go. But there's just a few more lines. But just to finish off the parak, if you have a kasha that the Gemara says that the Shavuot with the Plishitim is already gone, so then you can ask it over here, because by Yitzchak we said that Dovid HaMelech couldn't conquer the Plishitim land because of the Shavuot of Yitzchak. But according to the Gemara, the Shavuot of Yitzchak is gone. That I didn't say anyone asked. But okay, so let's just finish off the parak with the story of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov cursed Brisim Amei Aretz. Yaakov Avinu made a treaty with nations of the land. Sh'amar loy Lavan, ani yadesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu asad lichton za'achas kol Eretz Yisrael. Lavan said to Yaakov Avinu that I know that Hashem is destined to give to you and your descendants all of these lands. Kris imi bris shvuah she'en Yisrael yeshenes Eretz Aram. Please make with me a treaty that the Jews will not inherit the land of Aram. V'hitziv loy matzeves avonim. And so Yaakov Avinu made a treaty with Lavan, and he erected a pillar of stones, and Yaakov Avinu took his sons with him in this covenant of an oath. It says in the pasuk, Yaakov said to his brothers, gather stones to make this covenant. Were they his brothers? What do you mean his brothers? Yaakov Avinu said to his brothers, weren't they his sons, not his brothers? Rather, it's coming to teach you, Shebanav shel Adam ke'echav. A person's sons are like his brothers. And I spoke about this, exactly what ramifications of what this means in my Sefer and Yevamis, but I don't want to get into it right now. Omaloi Lavan. Lavan said to him, if the Jews inherit the land, they shouldn't cross over to the land of Aram for that. Fine. David, when Dovid HaMelech became king, wrote to Lavan Be'eretz Aram. Dovid HaMelech wanted to go into the land of Aram, and he couldn't go into the land of Aram to conquer it because of the promise of the covenant of Yaakov Avinu that he said to Lavan, he's not going to conquer Aram. Now, even though, as the Mefarshim speak out, even though Lavan already went against that deal, because Lavan is like Bilam, there's a one that says Lavan is Bilam, or a descendant of Bilam, or Bilam is definitely a representative of Aram, and he went to curse the Jews, so you say that he went against them, so he already nullified the bris, but you have the same thing, that Matzeves Avanim, that pillar of stones, apparently was still in existence, and it would have been a Chil Hashem for Dovid HaMelech to go cross it.
That's Eretz Yisrael we're talking about?
Between Eretz Yisrael and Aram. Aram is like, say, like in Syria, like Damascus, like not Eretz
Why
Yisrael.
did David just went up there to conquer anything?
Yeah, the Gemara talks about it called Kibush Yachid. That Dovid HaMelech went to conquer Syria. Right. Syria is Syria. That's the area of Aram. So Dovid couldn't conquer it until he smashed. Shiber means smash, not shavar means break, right? Shiber esamatzevah until he smashed that pillar. V'alav Omar Moshe shaber tishaber matzevah yisehem. And about this, Moshe Rabbeinu said in Parshas Mishpatim, shaber tishaber matzevah yisehem. You should surely smash their pillars, and it's a reference, or at least an allusion to this idea, because Pashup Shah is talking about Avodah Zarah, but here it's saying it's as a Jewish. It's talking about this matzeva between Yaakov and Lavan. Aram, and afterwards Dovid HaMelech conquered the land of Aram. Dovid is Hadad Ezer ben Rechoiv Melech Tzaiva, and Dovid HaMelech had smitten Hadad, the son of Rechoiv, the king of Tzaiva, Hadad Ezer, and Dovid HaMelech conquered it, and he was able to conquer the land of Aram. Okay, shkoyach, a gute Woche.